Welcome to another week of Chargers Chat. I'm Dan Wackerchowser. This week we're on location at Averkamp Auto Body in Platteville, joined by Ed Averkamp, owner of Averkamp Auto Body. Thanks for joining me, Ed. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So let's start maybe with a little background. Where are you from, and how did you get interested in auto collision and vehicles and that type of thing, Ed?
Growing up, I was always interested in cars, trucks, tractors. Grew up on a farm here in southwest Wisconsin. We had a dairy farm. We milked until I was in high school. At that time, my dad decided to sell the herd, and I actually started working at a body shop in Hazel Green. At the time, the state of Wisconsin offered what they would call a youth apprenticeship program. I signed up for that because of my interest in cars. With that, I would go to Southwest Technical College, and that's how I got my start up there. But we would go up there on Monday nights after school and do class. And then Tuesday through Friday, I had a job in a body shop.
Oh, really? So this started when you were young in high school?
Yep.
Or?
This started when I was a junior in high school.
Oh.
I had my teacher. I went to school in Belmont High School. My aide teacher there kind of said, you know, if this is something I'm interested in, I should pursue with it. So I did. I actually worked at that body shop for 5 years. Then I went to another body shop for 13 years before I bought this shop.
Was it a good area to get into when you were younger? When you were in high school, did it keep your attention?
Yes, I've always been interested in it. I particularly was always fascinated by the painting aspect of it. From the day I started this, I wanted to be a painter. I also wanted to own my own shop. Yeah. So I knew there was going to come a point where I was going to have to walk away from working on cars a little bit and get into the office aspect of it. But I was okay with that. But I've always loved painting cars. It's neat to see a car go from, you know, completely dull and primered areas to shiny. Right. So that's always been the part that's fascinated me the most.
And it's not easy. At Southwest Tech, we have the paint simulator, and I actually tried it a couple weeks ago, and it's a real difficult thing to do. It's not easy. And
ironically, the paint simulator is very difficult for an experienced painter to do. We're so used to being able to see the product going down onto the panel, where on the simulator we can't see that. I'm used to the clears I spray versus that's not letting me do that. I traditionally will hold the gun closer to the panel than what that simulator likes you to as well. I did the simulator one time. I can't remember what my score was, but I was a little embarrassed by it because I've been painting for almost 20 years now. So.
And speaking of painting, I know I was here last year, and you worked real closely with the community, and specifically Platteville High School and the group of students there. Can you tell me about that collaboration, Ed?
Yes, a couple of years ago, with the help of Southwest Tech, I started a joint program with Platteville High School, and I go over there and do a 1-week program. I go over there the first Monday through Thursday, and we work on putting a panel together, pulling some dents, getting something ready for paint, and then on that Friday, they get to come to my shop they get out of a couple hours of school, but they come to my shop and we paint the front clip. Before we clear it, then all the kids get to sign it, and the school gets the hood when we get done with it.
Yeah, they hang it up in their wall.
Yep. So after we just did our 4th session of this, so now they'll have 4 hoods hanging in their classroom.
That's awesome. When I was here last year, it seemed like all the kids were engaged and they were excited and they all wanted to paint.
Yep. Yeah, the first 4 days you don't see too many kids volunteering to pull dents and put a panel together. When it comes to a point where now we're going to paint the panels, now they're like, okay, everybody volunteers. So yeah.
Sure. So going back, you were interested in this in high school. So how did it get to the point of going to Southwest Tech, and then eventually now you're a business owner? How did that come about, Ed?
Well, I guess like I said, I've always wanted to own my own shop. I don't know where that kind of came from. It's just the way I wanted to own my own shop, but the youth apprenticeship program that they offered really gave me a good head start on that. Being able to start this when I was a junior in high school really worked out. Just even there, like the shops I worked at, I made it known to them that my plan was to be able to do everything and to own my own shop. So I guess I've always had it in my mind that I'm going to own my own shop, and I'm very fortunate 5 years ago I was able to do that. I had a specific timeline of when I wanted to own my own shop. I mean, I've had this plan for years,
right,
that I wanted to do this and when I wanted to own it and everything. So I'm very fortunate I made it work out for me.
Sure, yeah. In 5 years, it's a good run, and you're doing well here.
Yep.
I mean, people have nothing but great things to say about Averkamp Auto Body.
I don't regret it. I'm very fortunate that I get to wake up every morning. I don't ever dread coming to work. Right. I like what I do. yeah, there's days where things don't go perfect and they don't go the way, but I love what I do. I mean, not too many, I guess I find more and more not many people can say that. And,
yeah. So what's the difference between, say, 7 or 8 years ago when you're an employee to now you're a business owner? I imagine it's quite a bit of a difference.
Yeah. The biggest difference is now before when I was an employee, I did what I was supposed to do, and I knew what I was supposed to do. I walked in the shop, I knew exactly what I need to do. Now I need to making sure everybody else knows what they need to do.
Right.
That is the biggest transition. It is a little bit of a difference going from, employee to owner, not including any of the bookwork part of it. It's just different. You got to making sure those guys know what they're doing instead of me knowing what I'm doing.
Sure. And I don't know if people realize this either, but it's not just one business. You own 2 businesses.
Yeah, we actually own a seamless gutter company as well.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my wife actually, at one point in time, we had 3 different companies. My wife owned a daycare as well in Cuba City. She actually stepped away from that. She got offered a part-time teaching job at Platteville High School. So she does that, and then she'll be here about 10 o'clock every day, and then she works here too.
No, it's a family business.
Yeah, so both me and my wife are employed here now.
That's great. So what do you envision for the next 5-10 years for Averkamp Auto Body?
Growth.
Yeah.
I am always looking for more. I would love to expand and have bring on more employees. I have never really ruled out the idea of maybe building a new shop. Is it set in stone or anything? No, but that's what I'm going to keep pushing towards. I'm never one to stay where I'm at. I'm always trying to grow and go bigger and do stuff like that. The other thing is I really would like to be that shop that's ahead of everybody else. I meet with other shops probably 5 or 6 times a year. We all get together and talk about where we see this is going, what tools we're using, what are we finding out. With these newer vehicles, 10 years ago, it wasn't as big of a deal about the electronics and stuff in the cars. Now, that's huge. The amount of sensors that we're having to deal with, the amount of calibrations we're dealing with. It wasn't, 15, 20 years ago when we were doing this, there was never a worry about that.
Right.
And even now, what we used to fix 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we're not anymore because of the materials they're made with and what they're requiring us to do. It's changed a lot that way.
Mm-hmm. So typically, I don't know if there's such a thing as typically in your business, but what do you see these days? I know obviously there's a lot of deer in our area, but,
Yeah.
but what do you see a lot of?
A lot of minor front end hits.
Yeah.
That is going to be, I'm going to say what we do 75% of the time is minor front end hits. After that would be the minor rear end hits. You don't see a ton of these real hard heavy hits and we're fixing them anymore. If they're hit that hard, the insurance companies are totaling them out. Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. At what point, obviously you're an expert, at one point do you say this is unfixable? Does it get to a point where that does happen?
Ironically, I can't make that call.
Oh, okay.
That is all, as much as people want to say the body shops are to judge that, we don't get any say in that.
Oh.
That's all the insurance companies, in fact. It used to be a general idea of like 75% of the vehicle, and now it's total. That's not the way it goes anymore. A lot of it goes on what the crash value is. Some vehicles retain a lot higher crash value than what other vehicles do. So I've seen them total them at 50%, I've seen them fix them at 110%. So there really is no set price or set percentage on where they're total them anymore.
That's interesting.
But at the end of the day, I get no say in that. I can give them my recommendations saying, hey, I don't think I'd fix this because you're going to run into more damage, but at the end of the day, I get no say in that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this obviously for a few years. Are there any interesting stories or events that have happened? Any interesting crashes that you've heard of? You don't have to give out names. Or
no, we always get some of those crashes where like, how did this actually happen? Like I don't understand this. The more ironic ones are the one, we repair a car and then the next week they come back in the door and they're like, we're back, and I'm like, what's up? And they're like, no, we wrecked it again, and it's like, okay.
Right.
I had one customer, probably the most ironic thing since I've owned this shop. She had a car, she bought it brand new, she made it like 200,000 miles without an accident, and then she's seen me 5 times in 1 year.
Really?
Yeah. And by the time she come back the second time, she's like, I think I'm just going to try a different car.
Right.
She's like, this isn't working anymore. And she came close to totaling that car probably 3 times.
Wow.
You know, the first time it was just she brought it in here because it was something real minor, and then she like hit 2 deer with it. I'm trying to think of what the other 2 were, but yeah, she got to know me real well within the span of 1 year.
She had some bad luck that year.
Yeah, she had some really bad luck. Those are the more ironic ones. The stories people give you on how they wrecked them. You'll get some people that they'll just do some off the wall stuff, and it's like I can't believe you did that. But
yeah,
you know that's more of the
the
interesting stuff.
Yeah, makes for an interesting day.
Yeah, it does.
Let's go back to your connection to Southwest Tech. Obviously, you're an alumnus. You have the connection through Platteville High School, and you were saying earlier that you're on the advisory board. Can you tell me about that? How does that work, and what do you do there at?
I was fortunate enough about, I want to say, six months to a year after I bought the shop. Greg Woodman from Southwest Tech called and wanted to know if I'd be on the advisory board. He was looking to get, I don't want to say younger guys on there, but guys that are looking to grow their shops instead of guys that have been doing it for 20 years and they're okay doing it for 20 years. He does see that the industry is changing.
Sure.
So when he called and invited me to be on there, I was very honored. I said yes. We meet twice a year for that. We talk about what we're seeing for trends in the collision industry. I did get to meet a couple other new shops that way, and they are coincidentally some of the shops I meet with. I do meet with, because of things like the advisory board, I meet with shops that are probably 2-3 hours away, and I've gotten hooked up with shops all over the U.S. to actually discuss what we're seeing for trends. And with that advisory board, I meet with a lot of the local shops and we talk about that kind of stuff, and so it really helps out that way. And Greg really likes that. It gives him kind of an insight to see where this is all going. He'll ask us, what are we seeing as far as, front end hits, or are we putting on mini quarter panels? Are we, what are we doing and how are we fixing them to help? So when he teaches the students, he's teaching them what we're currently doing.
Sure. And what's your involvement, I guess, with students at Southwest Tech? Do you go in and talk to them? Do they come here? Do they apply?
A lot of times they'll come here. I will talk to Greg a lot of times and say, if he's got a student that's looking to get into this, let me know. I traditionally don't get to talk too much to the students up there. I told Greg a couple of times where I guess we're kind of working on a way for me to get up there and kind of talk with them. We're thinking about doing something with estimating.
Oh, sure.
Estimating's a big thing in shops. Not too many techs go on to do it, but the ones that do, I mean, you got to be good at it.
Sure. So for people that don't know, if they walk in and for you to start your day, what is, I don't want to say typical day, but what do you do at an auto collision shop at?
My typical day, I'm usually here a little before 7.
Yeah.
Because of having the second company, I'm trying to get them guys out of the door pretty early. My guys for the shop show up around 8 o'clock. I usually will go out, kind of have, we'll call it a short meeting, discuss what we're going to be working on for the day, where everything's at. Depending on what I got to do for book work or for insurance companies and stuff like that, I'll either do a little work out in the shop or come back in here and start doing what we call supplements or writing estimates and submitting all that stuff to insurance companies. That's usually when I try to order a lot of the parts too. Whether we got wrong parts the day before or it's the wrong side or anything like that, I'll try to get all that stuff taken care of right away in the morning. Then coincidentally, I'm usually, the rest of the day I spend bouncing back and forth between out in the shop and in here, and a lot of that kind of stuff. Once my wife gets here, she tries to handle some of that as well. She has spent numerous days with hours on the phones with insurance companies. There's a lot of that.
Right.
But that's my typical day. I'll paint traditionally a lot of stuff in the afternoon. It's traditionally hotter, but it's when it works out the best for me.
Sure.
Yep.
And every time that I've been here, there's always multiple vehicles in the shop. How hard is it logistically to keep on track of what one vehicle needs to another vehicle and keeping a plan in
usually
place?
ain't too bad. When I do the scheduling, I try to schedule accordingly. Where there becomes a hiccup is you can count on about twice a month we have a vehicle just get dropped off. We have a Ford truck that come in recently that was not scheduled, and it was somewhere right around $10,000 worth of damage from hitting a deer. that one wasn't scheduled, so that always creates a little bit of a hiccup.
Sure.
The other thing that creates a hiccup is when we've got a BMW over in the corner that we didn't realize there was additional damage once we pulled the bumper cover off. The bumper cover is very minor. You know, it's just to the point where we're replacing it, but once we pulled it off, we found some more damage, so now we're ordering more parts, and that's going to delay this whole project. But traditionally, you know, we're pretty good. My guys are pretty good at keeping things rolling and keeping things moving. But yeah, the ones that just randomly get dropped off are the ones that'll throw you the biggest hiccup. But anymore, you know, after 5 years of owning this shop and doing it for, 18 years before that, you know, I'm getting kind of used to that.
Right, I would think. So the other interesting thing, or the thing I thought of is, you know, we live obviously in Southwest Wisconsin. We have the 4 seasons with winter and everything. Is it climate controlled when you're painting? Does the weather affect anything that you do in the shop?
Yes. Heat always throws for a curveball. Temperature can change the way a color looks when we're spraying it. The other thing is I spray waterborne paint. Humidity makes a huge difference. So traditionally, when you're using a solvent-based product, you're using what they call a reducer, and you adjust that versus temperature. I adjust mine versus the humidity instead of temperature. So I can have a really hot day with low humidity, and I'll use a different control, what we call controller, versus if I have a really hot day and high humidity. So it's a little bit different. It's, again, after years and years of doing it, you get kind of used to doing it. But
right. So obviously you spend a lot of time here as a multiple business owner. What do you like to do if you ever have time for a hobby?
I have too many hobbies. You can ask my wife. I'm into way too much stuff. I volunteer on the fire department here in Platteville. I love going to car shows. I always love cars. I mean, that's why I got into this. I absolutely love truck and tractor pulling. That is probably my biggest hobby. I've always loved it. I've been in it for years. Me, my son, and my dad actually pull outlaw garden tractors.
Oh, awesome.
So we've been doing that. My son's been pulling something since he's been 4 years old. So he's never been around. He's never known life without it. So that's what I do. Yeah. Any motorsport, I've always been in that kind of stuff. Sure. But yeah, you ask my wife, I've got way too many hobbies.
That's great.
I've never been one to not be busy. So.
Yeah. So finally, I always like to ask everybody, you've been in the business for a while. What advice would you have for students at Southwest Tech, or even the high school students that you work with? What advice do you give them about their future and their career, or even maybe older students who want to go back and learn a trade, Ed? Any
advice I can give to any student, whether you're talking auto collision or any other occupation, is don't wait till you're graduating high school to start to pursue it. I cannot stress enough, I will never regret getting into this as a junior in high school, because I knew graduating high school that I wanted to do this. It wasn't, am I going to be okay with it? Am I going to enjoy it? I knew I already enjoyed it. Right. So whether any way you can get your foot in the door at a place where you're thinking about using that or having that kind of occupation, that's what I recommend doing. You're going to have to start at the bottom and work your way up, but I can honestly say by starting this as a junior in high school, finding jobs was easy. When they knew I've been doing this since I was a junior in high school, I mean, it was easy. So
that's great. Yeah. And now you have to get back to work.
Yeah, now I gotta get back to answering the phone.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Yep, thank you.
All right, join us again next week for another Chargers Chat.